Hana Kim pressed her face against the small window of the transport ship and watched the massive space station grow larger ahead of them. Orbital Station Kepler 442 looked like a giant metal flower floating in the darkness of space. Its silver arms stretched out in all directions, each one bigger than the tallest building back on Earth. "First time seeing the headquarters?" asked the pilot, a blue-skinned alien with 4 eyes. His voice came through the speaker with a buzzing sound. "Yes, sir," Hana replied, trying to keep her voice steady. She had dreamed of this moment for years. Ever since she was a little girl watching documentaries about the Galactic Wildlife Control Unit, she had wanted to join them. Now at 24 years old, she was finally here. The transport ship docked with a soft bump. Hana grabbed her single bag and followed the other passengers through the airlock. The station's corridors were much bigger than she had expected. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it. Aliens of all different shapes and sizes walked past her, talking in languages she had never heard before. Hana checked the digital map on her wrist device. She needed to find Section 7 Alpha, where the Wildlife Control Unit was located. She walked for what felt like hours through twisting corridors and moving walkways. Finally, she found the right door. The sign read Galactic Wildlife Control Dangerous Species Division in 12 different languages. Hana took a deep breath and pressed the entry button. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, she found herself in a large room filled with holographic displays showing different planets and creatures. Some of the animals on the screens were beautiful, but others made her stomach turn with fear. Giant tentacled beasts floating through space, creatures with too many teeth and glowing red eyes, things that looked like living storms with claws. "You must be the new human," said a rough voice behind her. Hana turned around and looked up. Way up. The alien standing before her was at least 9 feet tall and had 4 muscular arms. His skin looked like it was made of blue crystal that caught the light from the displays. 2 small horns grew from his forehead and his eyes were completely black. "I am Commander Daewoo," he said, crossing all 4 of his arms. "And you are late." "I am sorry, Commander," Hana said quickly. "The transport was delayed and then I got lost trying to find this section." Commander Daewoo made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like rocks grinding together. "Lost already? That does not give me confidence in your abilities." Before Hana could respond, another voice spoke up from across the room. "Oh look, the baby human has arrived." A creature that looked like a giant purple squid was sitting at one of the computer stations. It had 8 arms that ended in delicate fingers, and its large head was covered in what looked like glowing tattoos. This had to be Lieutenant Bora, the communications officer Hana had read about in the mission files. "I thought humans were supposed to be bigger," Lieutenant Bora continued, not looking away from her screen. "This one looks like she would blow away in a strong breeze." "I am stronger than I look," Hana said, trying to sound confident. "Sure you are," came another voice. This one belonged to a creature that looked like it was made of living armor. Sergeant Ji-ho was as wide as he was tall, with thick plates of brown chitin covering his entire body. His face was hidden behind a helmet that never came off. "How many dangerous animals have you actually dealt with, human?" "I worked with Earth animals during my training," Hana replied. "Bears, wolves, even some of the mutated species from the radiation zones." All 3 aliens looked at each other and then started laughing. Commander Daewoo's laughter sounded like an avalanche. Lieutenant Bora's was like water bubbling. Sergeant Ji-ho's was a deep rumble that made the floor vibrate. "Earth animals," Lieutenant Bora said between laughs. "She thinks Earth animals are dangerous." "Wait until she sees a real threat," Sergeant Ji-ho added. "Something that can eat a whole city for breakfast." Commander Daewoo raised one of his hands to stop the laughter. "Enough, human, let me explain something to you. This is not Earth. Out here in the galaxy, we deal with creatures that your species cannot even imagine. Things that can destroy planets. Beasts that live in the vacuum of space and hunt starships for fun." He walked over to one of the holographic displays and pointed at an image that made Hana's blood run cold. It showed something that looked like a mountain-sized creature with too many mouths. Its body was covered in what looked like black holes that seemed to suck in light itself. "This is a void stalker," Commander Daewoo continued. "One of the most dangerous creatures in the known galaxy. They can grow as large as moons and they eat everything in their path. Planets, asteroids, even other creatures. And right now there is one heading toward the human colony world of Zerion 7. Hana stared at the image, trying not to let her fear show on her face. The creature was terrifying, but there was something about it that seemed almost sad, like it was in pain. Our job is to stop it before it reaches the colony, Commander Daewoo said. 50,000 human lives depend on us. Do you think your experience with Earth bears has prepared you for that? No, sir, Hana admitted. But I am here to learn. Learning takes time we do not have, Lieutenant Bora said. This mission requires professionals who know what they are doing, which is why you will be staying on the station, Commander Daewoo decided. You can monitor our communications and observe how real wildlife control is done. Hana felt her heart sink. She had not come all this way just to watch from the sidelines. Commander, I know I am inexperienced, but I graduated top of my class in animal psychology. I might be able to help. Animal psychology, Sergeant Jiho repeated with amusement. She wants to talk to the Void Stalker. Maybe ask it about its feelings. Humans, Lieutenant Bora said, shaking her head, always thinking everything can be solved with hugs and understanding. That is why your species is considered soft throughout the galaxy. We are not soft, Hana protested. Really? Commander Daewoo asked. Then tell me, human. When faced with a creature that can devour worlds, what is your solution? What does human training teach you to do? Hana thought carefully before answering. Try to understand why it is acting aggressively. Find out what it needs. Look for a solution that does not require violence. The three aliens exchanged looks again. This time they did not laugh. They just looked disappointed. Exactly, Commander Daewoo said. Soft. In 3 days we deploy to Zerion 7 to stop the Void Stalker. You will remain here and monitor our progress. Try to learn something useful while we handle the real work. As the aliens turned back to their preparations, Hana stood alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by images of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, but it was nothing like what she had imagined. But she was not ready to give up. Not yet. 3 days passed too quickly. Hana spent every hour studying the files about Void Stalkers, reading everything she could find about their behavior and biology. The more she learned, the more questions she had. But every time she tried to share her thoughts with the team, they brushed her off. The transport leaves in 1 hour, Commander Daewoo announced as he checked his weapons. Final equipment check. Hana watched from her monitoring station as the three aliens prepared for deployment. They carried enough firepower to level a small city. Plasma cannons, quantum bombs, and something called a reality disruptor that she did not want to think about too closely. Commander, she said, trying one more time, I have been studying the creature's movement patterns. There might be something important you should know. There is nothing to know, Lieutenant Bora replied without looking up from her equipment. Void Stalkers are simple creatures. They eat everything in their path. We blow them up. Mission complete. But the satellite data shows something different, Hana insisted. The creature is not moving randomly. It is following specific paths, avoiding certain areas completely. Sergeant Jiho made his rumbling laugh sound. Maybe it just does not like the taste of those places. This is serious, Hana said, her voice getting louder. If we could understand why it is choosing certain routes, we might be able to predict where it will go next. Maybe even redirect it away from the colony without violence. Commander Daewoo finally turned to face her. Human, I will say this once more. Void Stalkers are not pets. They are not misunderstood creatures looking for friendship. They are destroyers. The only language they understand is force. How do you know that if no one has ever tried to communicate with one? Hana asked. Because smarter beings than you have tried, a new voice said from the doorway. An elderly alien entered the room. He was tall and thin, with pale white skin that seemed to glow slightly. His head was larger than a human's and his eyes were completely silver. Hana recognized him from the mission files. This was Dr. Taemin, the galaxy's leading expert on Void Stalkers. Doctor, Commander Daewoo said with respect, I did not expect you to join us. The Council wants someone with experience observing this mission, Dr. Taemin replied. I have been studying Void Stalkers for 200 years. I have seen what happens when people try your soft approach, human. He walked over to Hana's station and looked at the data she had been analyzing. For a moment, his silver eyes seemed to flicker with interest. These movement patterns, he said slowly. Where did you get this data? I combined information from 12 different satellite feeds and ran it through a behavioral analysis program, Hana explained. The same kind we use to track migrating animals on Earth. Dr. Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Interesting methodology, but ultimately pointless. Void Stalkers do not migrate. They hunt. But what if they are not hunting? Hana asked. What if they are protecting something? Protecting what? Lieutenant Bora laughed. Void stalkers travel alone. They have no young, no mates, no territory to defend. Then why does this one keep circling back to the same area? Hana pointed at her screen. Look at the pattern. It moves forward for several hours, then returns to these coordinates, then moves forward again. That is not hunting behavior. That is guarding behavior. Dr. Taemin leaned closer to the screen. Show me. Hana pulled up a three-dimensional map showing the creature's movements over the past week. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. The Void Stalker was not moving in a straight line toward the colony. It was moving in loops, always returning to the same point before continuing its journey. I have never seen this before, Dr. Taemin admitted quietly. Because no one was looking for it, Hana said. Everyone assumes Void Stalkers are just mindless destroyers. But what if they are more complex than that? Commander Daewook crossed his arms impatiently. Even if that is true, it does not change our mission. The creature is still heading toward 50,000 innocent people. We have to stop it. But maybe we can stop it without killing it, Hana suggested. If I could get close enough to study its behavior patterns directly. Absolutely not, Commander Daewook said firmly. You are staying on the station where you will be safe. I could take readings from a distance, Hana pressed. Just close enough to gather more data about what it is protecting. Dr. Taemin looked at the data again, then at Hana. Your analysis is more thorough than I expected from someone so young. But getting close to a Void Stalker is suicide. Not if I am careful, Hana said. And not if I have backup nearby. The answer is no, Commander Daewook said. We cannot risk a team member on a theory. But you can risk 50,000 colonists on the assumption that violence is the only solution? Hana shot back. The room fell silent. Even Lieutenant Bora stopped working to stare at her. Dr. Taemin spoke first. She has a point, Commander. If there is even a small chance that this creature is acting defensively, rather than aggressively, we should investigate. It is too dangerous, Commander Daewook insisted. I will take full responsibility, Dr. Taemin said. Let her gather field data from a safe distance while we prepare the main assault. If she finds nothing useful, we proceed as planned. Commander Daewook looked like he wanted to argue, but Dr. Taemin was too respected to dismiss easily. Finally, he sighed heavily. Fine, but she stays at least 50 kilometers away from the creature at all times, and she follows orders without question. Thank you, Commander, Hana said, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice. Do not thank me yet, he replied grimly. If your theory is wrong, we will have wasted precious time. Time that 50,000 people do not have. As the team finished their preparations, Hana gathered her own equipment. Scanners, recording devices, and a small shuttle that would let her observe the creature from what she hoped was a safe distance. She just had to hope that her theory was right. Because if she was wrong, those colonists would pay the price for her mistake. The transport ship launched from the station 6 hours later, carrying the team toward what might be the most important mission of their careers, and possibly their last. Planet Xerion 7 was beautiful from space, with blue oceans and green continents covered in thick forests, but as their ship entered the atmosphere, Hana could see the damage. Large areas of the northern continent were completely black, as if something had burned away all life. Void Stalker damage, Dr. Taemin explained as he noticed her staring. It passed through that area 3 days ago. How much did it eat? Hana asked. Everything, Commander Daewook replied grimly. Trees, animals, soil, even the rocks. Nothing is left but empty space. Their ship landed near the human colony of New Sol, a city of gleaming towers surrounded by protective energy barriers. 50,000 people lived here, completely unaware that death was slowly approaching them. Hana's shuttle was smaller than she had expected, barely large enough for one person and her equipment. Dr. Taemin checked her communication systems one final time. Remember, he said, you maintain contact at all times. If something goes wrong, you run. Do not try to be a hero. I understand, Hana replied, though her heart was beating fast with nervousness. Commander Daewook and his team were setting up their weapons 50 kilometers away from the Void Stalker's current position. Massive plasma cannons that could crack open moons. Lieutenant Bora was coordinating with the orbital defense platforms, preparing a bombardment that would be visible from space. Target is holding position. Sergeant Jiho reported over the radio. Just sitting there like it is waiting for something. Waiting for what? Commander Daewook asked. Hana launched her shuttle and flew toward the coordinates she had calculated. The Void Stalker was not at the center of the destruction zone as everyone expected. It was at the edge in an area that looked completely normal from above. As she got closer, she could see the creature clearly for the first time. The satellite images had not done it justice. It was enormous, easily the size of a city district, but it was not the shapeless monster she had imagined. Its body had a strange beauty to it, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and change like oil on water. But what struck her most was how still it was. The creature that everyone feared was just sitting quietly, not eating anything, not destroying anything, just waiting. I am at the observation point, she reported over the radio. Beginning scans now. Her equipment immediately started picking up unusual readings. The area around the Void Stalker was filled with energy patterns she had never seen before. But these patterns were not coming from the creature itself. They were coming from below ground. Dr. Taman, she called. I am detecting massive biosignatures beneath the surface. Something is down there. Probably more of the creature's victims, Lieutenant Bora replied over the channel. But Hana was not convinced. The energy readings were too organized, too structured, and they seemed to be responding to the Void Stalker's presence, pulsing in rhythm with the creature's own biopatterns. I need to get closer, she said. Negative. Commander Daewook's voice crackled through the speaker. You maintain your distance. But as Hana watched, the Void Stalker began to move, not toward the colony as everyone expected, but toward a small mountain nearby. Its movements were careful, almost gentle, as if it was trying not to disturb something. It is not heading for the colony, she reported. It is moving toward the mountain range. Probably looking for minerals to eat, Sergeant Jiho suggested. Hana made a decision that would change everything. Against direct orders, she followed the creature toward the mountains. Her shuttle's stealth systems would keep her hidden, and she needed to know what was so important about this area. The Void Stalker stopped at the base of a large mountain and began to dig. But instead of the violent destruction everyone expected, it dug carefully, using what looked like specialized appendages to move earth and rock without crushing whatever was beneath. Oh my God, Hana whispered as she realized what she was seeing. The creature had uncovered a vast underground cavern system. And the cavern was full of eggs, hundreds of them, each one glowing with soft bioluminescent patterns. But these were not Void Stalker eggs. They were too small, too delicate. Dr. Taman, she called urgently. I found what it is protecting. There are eggs down there. Hundreds of them. Impossible, Dr. Taman replied. Void Stalkers do not lay eggs. These are not Void Stalker eggs, Hana said, adjusting her scanners for a better reading. The biosignatures are completely different. I think they belong to luminous shepherds. There was silence on the radio. Luminous shepherds were peaceful creatures that helped maintain planetary ecosystems. They were considered sacred by many alien species, and killing them was illegal throughout the galaxy. That cannot be right, Commander Daewook finally said. Void Stalkers eat everything. Why would one protect shepherd eggs? Hana watched as the creature gently covered the eggs with its own body, shielding them from the cold mountain air. The answer suddenly became clear. Because something else is threatening them, she said. The Void Stalker is not the predator here. It is the protector. Protecting them from what? Dr. Taman asked. Hana ran deeper scans of the area and found her answer. From us, she said quietly. The mining operations. The colonists have been strip mining this mountain for rare metals. They would have destroyed the eggs without even knowing they were there. The radio was silent for a long moment. Even if that is true, Commander Daewook finally said, the creature is still heading toward the colony. We cannot let it reach populated areas. But what if it is not going to attack? Hunter asked. What if it is just trying to find a safe place for the eggs? We cannot take that risk, Commander Daewook replied. Preparing to fire. Hana watched in horror as the massive plasma cannons in the distance began to power up. The energy buildup would be visible for kilometers, and the Void Stalker noticed it too. The creature raised what might have been its head and looked directly at the weapons pointed at it. For the first time, Hana could see what looked like eyes, ancient and intelligent. Wait, she called desperately into her radio. Please wait. Let me try something. Try what? Commander Daewook demanded. Hana remembered her training from Earth. working with frightened animals that had been cornered by humans. The key was always communication, showing that you were not a threat. Let me try to talk to it. Talk to it? Commander Daewok's voice was filled with disbelief. Have you lost your mind completely? Give me 5 minutes, Hana pleaded. If I cannot make contact, then you can fire. This is insane, Lieutenant Bora muttered over the radio. Humans and their ridiculous ideas. But Dr. Tayman's voice cut through the chatter. Let her try. What do we have to lose? Hana could hear arguing in the background, but she did not wait for permission. She landed her shuttle on a flat area near the mountain and stepped outside. The air was thin at this altitude, and she could feel her heart pounding from both the lack of oxygen and pure terror. The Void Stalker was less than 100 meters away. Up close, it was even more massive than she had imagined. Its body rose above her like a living mountain, covered in patterns that shifted and moved like waves. She could feel the heat radiating from it, and a low humming sound that seemed to come from deep inside its body. Hana, get back in your shuttle immediately, Commander Daewok ordered. That is a direct command. But Hana was already walking toward the creature. She kept her movements slow and steady, the way she had been taught to approach frightened animals. Her hands were empty and visible, showing she carried no weapons. The Void Stalker noticed her approach. Several appendages that might have been sensors turned in her direction, and she felt like she was being studied by something incredibly ancient and intelligent. Easy, she said softly, knowing the creature could not understand her words, but hoping it could sense her intention. I am not here to hurt you. The creature made a sound unlike anything she had ever heard. It was like whale song mixed with thunder, deep and haunting. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. Hana stopped walking and stood perfectly still. In her training with earth animals, the next step was always the most dangerous. The moment when the animal decided whether you were friend or enemy. She remembered working with a wounded bear back on Earth. The creature had been caught in an illegal trap and was in terrible pain. Everyone said it was too dangerous to approach, that it should be put down for public safety. But Hana had spent hours sitting nearby, just letting the bear get used to her presence. I know you are protecting them, she said to the Void Stalker. The eggs! The shepherd children. I understand. The creature made another sound, softer this time, almost questioning. Hana slowly reached into her equipment pack and pulled out a bioscanner. The device could read emotional states in most known species. She pointed it at the Void Stalker and was amazed by what she saw. Fear, sadness, determination, and underneath it all, something that looked very much like parental protectiveness. You're not a monster, she whispered. You are a guardian. The Void Stalker began to move, and for a moment Hana thought she had made a terrible mistake. But instead of attacking, the creature lowered what might have been its head until it was only a few meters away from her. She could see patterns of light moving beneath its skin, pulsing in complex rhythms. Without thinking, she activated her suit's bioluminescent display system, a feature designed for underwater exploration. The lights on her suit began to flash in simple patterns. The Void Stalker went completely still. Then incredibly, the patterns on its skin began to change. The lights began flashing in the same rhythm as her suit. It is copying me, she breathed into her radio. Impossible, Dr. Tayman said, but his voice was full of wonder. Hana tried a different pattern, 3 long flashes, then 2 short ones. The creature watched for a moment, then repeated the exact sequence. It is learning, she said. Dr. Tayman, this creature is intelligent. Highly intelligent. Even if that is true, Commander Daewok interrupted, it is still dangerous. The plasma cannons are fully charged and ready to fire. But Hana was not listening. She was too focused on the incredible conversation happening in front of her. She tried more complex patterns, and the creature matched each one perfectly. Then it began creating its own patterns, waiting to see if she could copy them back. We are communicating, she said in amazement. Actually communicating with a Void Stalker. Through her bioscanner, she could see the creature's emotional state changing. The fear was fading, replaced by something that looked like curiosity and hope. Then the creature did something that changed everything. It moved to one side and gestured toward the cavern full of eggs with one of its appendages. The meaning was clear. It wanted to show her something. Hana followed, ignoring the panicked voices on her radio. Inside the cavern, she could see the eggs more clearly. They were beautiful, each one covered in delicate patterns that reminded her of stained glass. But she also saw something else that made her stomach turn: mining equipment, drill bits and excavation tools that had been abandoned when the workers fled. The machines had been digging directly toward the egg chamber. If the mining had continued for just one more day, all of the shepherd eggs would have been destroyed. The mining operation, she said into her radio. They were about to drill right through the nesting chamber. The Void Stalker was not coming to attack the colony. It was coming to ask for help. Ask for help? Sergeant Jiho laughed. It cannot talk. But it can communicate, Hana replied. And it has been trying to. The movement patterns I detected, the way it kept circling back to this area, it was trying to show us what was wrong. She looked at the creature, which was watching her with what she was beginning to recognize as intelligence and patience. You tried to warn us, did you not? But no one was listening. The Void Stalker made another sound, softer and sadder than before. Through the bioscanner, Hana could see waves of frustration and grief. How long had this creature been trying to protect the eggs? How many other species had dismissed it as a mindless monster? Commander, she said urgently, we need to call off the attack. This creature is not our enemy. The weapons are locked and loaded, Commander Daewoo replied. We cannot take the risk. But then a new voice joined the conversation. Admiral So Young of the Earth Fleet speaking from orbit. All units stand down, the Admiral ordered. I have been monitoring this situation, and I am authorizing a full communication protocol. Admiral, this goes against all established procedures, Commander Daewoo protested. Commander, we are witnessing the first successful communication with a Void Stalker in recorded history, Admiral So Young replied. This changes everything we thought we knew about these creatures. As the plasma cannons powered down, Hana felt the Void Stalker relax beside her. The creature's biopatterns shifted to what her scanner interpreted as relief and gratitude. What happens now? She asked. Now, said Dr. Taman, wonder still clear in his voice. We try to understand what we have learned, and perhaps we discover that the galaxy is full of friends we thought were enemies. The Void Stalker made one more sound, and this time, Hana was certain she heard something like contentment in its voice. For the first time in who knew how many years, something was finally listening. News of Hana's breakthrough spread across the galaxy faster than a solar flare. Within hours, ships from dozens of different worlds were heading toward Xerion 7. Scientists, diplomats, military leaders, and reporters all wanted to witness the impossible. A human talking to a Void Stalker. Hana had not slept in 2 days. She spent every waking moment with the creature she had started calling Guardian, learning more about its complex communication system. The bioluminescent patterns were just the beginning. Guardian also used sound frequencies, electromagnetic pulses, and even chemical signals that Hana's equipment could barely detect. The linguistic complexity is incredible, said Professor Nari, a renowned xenolinguist from Galactic University, who had arrived on the first research ship. This creature has a vocabulary larger than most spacefaring species. Commander Daewoo stood nearby, watching Guardian with a mixture of awe and embarrassment. 200 years, he muttered. For 200 years we have been treating them as monsters. Guardian had been patient with the constant stream of visitors, but Hana could sense its growing anxiety through their communication link. The creature kept sending patterns that her translation software interpreted as urgent and danger close. Something is wrong, she told Dr. Taman. Guardian is trying to warn us about something, but I cannot understand what. Dr. Taman studied the readings from his own scanners. The creature's stress levels have been rising steadily since yesterday. Perhaps it is uncomfortable with so many strangers nearby. But Guardian's next message made everything clear. The creature projected a complex series of patterns that included images of the mountain, the mining equipment, and something else. Something small and invisible that seemed to be eating everything it touched. Quantum parasites, Dr. Taman whispered as understanding dawned on him. Of course. That is what the mining operation disturbed. What are quantum parasites? Hana asked. Microscopic creatures that exist partially outside normal spacetime, Professor Nari explained grimly. They consume matter at the molecular level. If they spread, they can devour entire planets. Guardian's patterns became more urgent. Through their growing understanding of each other, Hana began to grasp the full scope of the problem. The parasites had been dormant deep underground until the mining equipment woke them up. Now they were spreading through the rock, heading toward the planet's core. How long do we have? General Minho asked. He had arrived from Earth with orders to assess the military implications of the situation. Guardian showed them an image of the planet with expanding circles of destruction. According to its calculations, the parasites would reach critical mass within days. When that happened, Zirion 7 would simply cease to exist. Can we stop them? Hana asked. Guardian's response was complex. Images of itself diving deep underground, using its natural abilities to consume the parasites before they could spread further. But the process would be incredibly dangerous, even for a creature as powerful as a Voidstalker. It wants to help us, Hana realized. Even after everything we did to it, Guardian wants to save the planet. The irony is not lost on me, Commander Daewoo said quietly. The monster we came to destroy is the only thing that can save us. But there was a problem. Guardian could handle the parasites, but only if it could find them all. And the infestation had already spread far beyond what any single creature could manage alone. We need more Voidstalkers, Dr. Taemin concluded. How many more? General Minho asked. Guardian's answer made everyone go silent. At least 12 Voidstalkers would be needed to clean the entire infestation, and they would need human coordinators to help them communicate and work together. 12, Professor Nari repeated. Do we even know where to find 12 Voidstalkers? I do, Admiral So-Young said over the communication link from orbit. Long-range sensors have been tracking them for decades. Most are in uninhabited systems, probably protecting other species we do not even know about. The plan that emerged was ambitious and terrifying. Human teams would be sent to make contact with other Voidstalkers across the galaxy. If successful, they would coordinate the largest interspecies rescue operation in recorded history. Who will lead the contact teams? General Minho asked. All eyes turned to Hana. She was the only person who had successfully communicated with a Voidstalker. But the thought of facing 11 more of these massive creatures was overwhelming. I cannot do it alone, she said. You will not be alone, Commander Daewoo assured her. We will be with you. All of us. Lieutenant Bora, who had been silent through most of the discussion, finally spoke up. I owe you an apology, human. I was wrong about your species, about the value of compassion in dangerous situations. We all were, Sergeant Jiho added. Your soft approach saved not just the colony but the entire planet. Guardian made a sound that Hana had learned to interpret as agreement. Through their communication link, she could sense something that felt like approval and encouragement. Over the next week, teams deployed across the galaxy to locate other Voidstalkers. Each contact was different, but the basic approach remained the same. Patience, respect, and the recognition that these creatures were not monsters but guardians of species too vulnerable to protect themselves. Not every attempt was successful. 2 teams failed to make meaningful contact, and 1 team narrowly escaped when they approached a Voidstalker that was protecting a species of living crystals and interpreted their presence as an attack. But gradually, the alliance grew. 9 Voidstalkers agreed to help with the parasite problem. Each one brought knowledge of different threats and different species that needed protection. It is like discovering an entire shadow civilization, Professor Nari observed. These creatures have been maintaining the balance of life in the galaxy for who knows how long, and we never even noticed. The operation to cleanse Zirion 7 took 3 days. Hana coordinated the effort from orbit, using the communication protocols she had developed to direct the Voidstalkers to infected areas. It was like conducting a symphony orchestra, if the orchestra members were each the size of a small city. Guardian led the effort, diving deep into the planet's crust to hunt down the parasite colonies. The other Voidstalkers worked systematically through the infected areas, their natural abilities perfectly suited for this kind of molecular-level cleanup. When it was over, Zirion 7 was not just saved but actually healthier than before. The Voidstalkers had removed other contaminants and restored natural mineral balances that had been disrupted by centuries of industrial activity. The Galactic Council wants to offer you a position, Ambassador Kyung-soo told Hana as she prepared to return to the station. Director of Interspecies Beast Communication. You would have resources, funding, and authority to expand this work across the galaxy. Hana looked out at Guardian, who was playing with a group of young shepherds that had hatched from the protected eggs. The massive creature moved with surprising gentleness, creating light patterns that made the small creatures chirp with what sounded like laughter. There is so much we still do not understand, she said. How many other species have we labeled as dangerous simply because we never tried to communicate with them? That, Ambassador Kyung-soo replied with a smile, is exactly why we need you to find out. 6 months after the Zarian 7 incident, orbital station Kepler 442 looked completely different. The Dangerous Species Division had been renamed the Interspecies Communication Department, and its staff had grown from 4 members to over 200. Representatives from dozens of different worlds worked alongside human specialists, all learning the new protocols that Hana had developed. Director Kim to the main operations center, the station's computer announced. Priority 1 situation developing in the Andromeda sector. Hana still felt strange hearing her new title, but she had grown into the role quickly. She hurried through corridors that now hummed with activity, past research labs where teams studied communication patterns from newly contacted species. The main operations center was 5 times larger than the old monitoring room. Holographic displays showed dozens of active missions across the galaxy, each one involving communication attempts with creatures that had previously been considered threats. "What is the situation?" she asked as she entered the center. Commander Daewook, now her deputy director, gestured toward the largest display. "Star whale in the Vega system. It is dying, but its death throes are creating gravitational anomalies that could destroy 3 inhabited worlds." Hana studied the data. Star whales were massive creatures that lived in the vacuum of space, feeding on solar energy and cosmic radiation. This one was ancient, probably thousands of years old, and its body was failing. "Have we established communication?" she asked. Director Chanwoo's team made contact an hour ago, Lieutenant Bora reported. She had requested a transfer to Hana's department and had become one of their most skilled translators. But the creature is in too much pain to maintain coherent dialogue. "How long before the gravitational effects reach the inhabited systems?" Hana asked. 14 hours, Sergeant Jiho replied. He now headed their emergency response division, leading teams equipped for rapid deployment to crisis situations. Hana looked at the display showing the massive creature writhing in space. Its body was easily the size of Earth's moon, and she could see the reality distortion spreading outward from its location like ripples in a pond. "We need to help it find a safe place to die," she decided. "Somewhere its passing will not harm anyone else." "How do we move something that large?" asked researcher Da-Eun, a young vegan scientist who had joined the team to study human empathy methods. "We do not move it," Hana replied. "We guide it." The plan they developed over the next hour was complex and risky. Guardian, who had become Hana's permanent partner after the Zarian 7 mission, would make contact with the dying star whale. Other Void Stalkers positioned throughout the system would help guide the creature toward an empty region of space where its death would cause no harm. But first, they had to convince a creature in terrible pain to trust them. "Guardian is ready for deployment," came the report from the launch bay. Hana suited up in her new communication gear, equipment designed specifically for deep space operations. The bioluminescent systems were more advanced now, capable of producing complex light patterns visible across thousands of kilometers. "Director," Commander Daewook said, as she prepared to board her shuttle. "Are you certain about this? Star whales are even more dangerous than Void Stalkers when they are distressed." "That is exactly why I need to go," Hana replied. "This creature is dying and afraid. It needs to know that someone cares about its suffering." The flight to the Vega system took 6 hours, even with the fastest ships available. As they dropped out of hyperspace, Hana could see the star whale floating in the distance, its massive body glowing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of agony and confusion. "Life signs are failing rapidly," reported the ship's medical officer. "The creature has maybe hours left." Guardian moved ahead of their ship, approaching the star whale with the careful movements Hana had taught it. The massive Void Stalker was dwarfed by the dying creature, but it began the communication protocols anyway. The star whale's response was immediate and heartbreaking. Waves of pain and loneliness flooded through the communication link, so intense that Hana had to adjust her equipment to avoid being overwhelmed. "It has been alone for centuries," she reported to the team. "Its entire pod died long ago, and it has been wandering through space ever since through Guardian." Hana began sending patterns of comfort and understanding. She drew on every technique she had learned, not just from working with aliens but from her childhood experiences with Earth animals. the universal language of compassion that crossed all species barriers. Slowly, the star whale's thrashing began to calm. Its bioluminescent patterns shifted from chaotic flashes of pain to more organized sequences that Guardian could interpret. It understands that we want to help, Hana said, but it is afraid of causing harm to others. This was the crucial moment. Hana had to convince a dying creature to make one final journey, to use its last strength to protect worlds it had never seen. She thought about Guardian and how it had risked everything to protect the shepherd eggs. She thought about all the other monsters they had discovered were actually guardians and protectors. And she realized that this star whale was the same kind of creature, something that cared about life even as its own was ending. Show it the inhabited worlds, she instructed Guardian. Let it see what will happen if it dies here. Guardian projected images through their communication link. The 3 worlds in danger, each one teeming with billions of lives. Cities full of families, oceans full of marine life, forest full of creatures that had never heard of star whales but would die if this one could not be helped. The star whale's response was immediate. Despite its pain, despite its exhaustion, it began to move. Slowly, majestically, the enormous creature turned toward the empty region of space that the team had identified. It is working, reported Commander Junseo from one of the escort ships. Gravitational readings are shifting. The creature is heading for the safe zone, but the journey was taking too long. The star whale's life signs were dropping rapidly, and it was still hours away from the empty space. We need to do something, Hana said urgently. It is not going to make it. That was when Guardian did something that surprised everyone. The Void Stalker moved alongside the star whale and began sharing its own energy, transferring bioelectrical power to help sustain the dying creature. Guardian, no, Hana called out. You could kill yourself, but Guardian's response was clear. Through their link, Hana felt the Void Stalker's determination and compassion. It had learned from humans that sometimes sacrifice was necessary to protect others. Other Void Stalkers throughout the system began converging on their location. Without being asked, they all began sharing their energy with the dying star whale, creating a support network that stretched across thousands of kilometers. I have never seen anything like this, whispered Dr. Taemin from the observation ship. Void Stalkers working together, sacrificing their own well-being for a creature of a completely different species. The combined effort worked. The star whale reached the safe zone just as its life finally ended. Its death was peaceful, its body dissolving into streams of energy that would eventually become new stars. The gravitational effects were contained in empty space, causing no harm to anyone. Mission accomplished, Hana reported, but her voice was heavy with sadness for the magnificent creature that had died alone despite their efforts to comfort it. Guardian and the other Void Stalkers gathered around the area where the star whale had died, their bioluminescent patterns creating what looked like a memorial light show visible across the entire system. When they returned to the station, news crews from across the galaxy were waiting. The story of the star whale rescue had captured imaginations everywhere, and requests for similar interventions were pouring in from dozens of worlds. Director Kim, said a reporter from the Galactic News Network, 6 months ago, most species considered humans too soft for dangerous work. Now human empathy teams are the most requested crisis response units in the galaxy. How do you explain this change? Hana thought about her answer carefully. I think we have learned that what makes someone strong is not their ability to destroy, but their willingness to understand. Humans are not the strongest or smartest species in the galaxy, but we might be the best at seeing past fear to find the truth underneath. And what truth is that? The reporter asked. Hana looked out at Guardian, who was playing with a group of young aliens who had come to tour the station. The massive creature that had once been feared across the galaxy was now gently creating light patterns to entertain children. That there are no monsters, she said simply, only beings who have not been understood yet. Later that evening, as the station returned to its normal routine, Hana stood in her office looking out at the stars. Her desk was covered with reports of successful communications with creatures throughout the galaxy. The crystalline swarms of Rigel had been revealed as artists, creating beautiful sculptures in asteroid fields. The shadow hunters of Proxima were actually healers, consuming diseases and parasites that threatened other species. Commander Daewook entered her office carrying a cup of Earth coffee, a habit he had picked up from working with humans. The council has approved funding for 50 new communication teams, he reported. They want coverage for every major system in the gal.